Let's recap chapter 27. So in the last chapter, we learned some new things about Delphine. So they picked up the mess that was left after the police raid when the police arrested their mom. Vonetta finds a poem and she wants to read it. It's one that Cecile wrote called I Birth a Nation. What seems important, or what we're learning about the problem? Well, at the end of that chapter 27, Mrs. Woods and Hirohito come over and feed the girls, even though Delphine is kind of embarrassed about their house and that Cecile isn't there. The girls are just really grateful for their help. Connections to previously read chapters. Well, the Woods family really seems to understand what the girls are going through because Hirohito's father was arrested too. So in the end, that might be why Mrs. Woods says, we know the same things, we have to stick together. Meaning, like, just like you know, we have someone in our family who was also arrested by these police officers. All right. Moving on. Let's look at our lens. So we want to be paying attention to character traits, the relationships between characters, the point of view, how the narrator's feeling about the story elements, how Delphine's feeling about different parts of the story. Any changes to character, their traits, the plot, relationships, setting, changes in a lesson. And then we want to look at the themes, the potential themes of the text. All right, let's read. Stores of the No-Sayers. I gave what few flyers Cecile had printed up to Sister Makumbu. She, Sister Pat, Crazy Kelvin, and the ladies who served breakfast, and everyone else all knew Nazila had been arrested. Sister Makumbu said we should stay with her until Nazila was released. It was funny how things changed. If Cecile had been arrested when we first arrived in Oakland, I would have called Pa, and Pa would have made sure my sisters and I were back on a plane to New York. Nothing would have made me happier than to leave Cecile in Oakland back then. But we hadn't gotten what we came for. We didn't really know our mother, and I couldn't leave without knowing who she was. I certainly didn't want to tell Big Ma that everything she had said about Cecile for the past 7 years was right, that Cecile was no kind of mother and had gotten herself locked up to prove it. It was bad enough to hear Big Ma supposing out loud every kind of selfish trouble Cecile had tangled up in. Day in and day out, I'd never hear the end of it. And there was no telling Big Ma that Cecile was a freedom fighter, oppressed by the man. Day in, day out, Big Ma would give my ear a hurtin' over Cecile. No, I couldn't call Pa yet. What if Cecile was released tomorrow? Whoa. So it seems like Delphine has kind of gained some clues about who her mother is, but she's not quite there yet. She's got some clues. You know, she's a freedom fighter. She's being oppressed by the man. But this is a big change in the beginning. She wants to know more about her mother, where in the beginning she almost resented the fact that they were going to go stay with her. You know, they were more looking forward to, like, seeing Disneyland than they were to, like, spending time with Mom. I thanked Sister Makumbu for her offer and told her as quietly as I could that we were staying with Hirohito and his mother. I certainly didn't want Eunice and her sisters to know that we were staying at the Woods house. Although Vanetta promised to keep her mouth shut, I didn't think she could hold it in. Anything to make Janice jealous. Our mother will expect us to be home when they let her out. She won't be too happy hunting around town looking for us if we're not home. Sister Makumbu said we would be safer with Mrs. Woods than by ourselves. Sister Pat added, the man is still watching the house. So I want to make sure that we're clear about who the man is in this instance. I think what they might mean by the man is probably like the police. I asked Sister Makumbu why our mother had been arrested in the first place. She said the police were really after the two who had been arrested with her. She also said our mother helped to spread the word by volunteering her printing services. Information is power, she told me as if we were having a lesson. Keeping the people informed keeps the people empowered. Cecile wasn't exactly like Hirohito's father, going around spreading the word and telling the truth. She fussed about printing anything other than her poetry. I didn't tell Sister Makumbu that, and honestly, I believe she said that about Nazila giving power to the people to make me feel good about seeing my mother being taken away in handcuffs. So, interesting twist in this plot. So Delphine kind of sees Nazila her Cecile's arrest as a positive. She's starting to think maybe of her mother as a freedom fighter. And it might be, I think, maybe the first time Delphine has some positive feelings about Cecile. Crazy Kelvin held up his fist and said, "Stay strong, my black sisters. Hold your heads up." Vanetta gave him the power sign back, but Fern pointed at him and said, "What's wrong with this picture?" He laughed like Fern was a silly little girl. To someone Kelvin's age, she was just that, a silly little girl. To his chuckle, Fern said, "Good boy, Fido." And then she barked, "Arf, arf!" Vanetta and I were embarrassed and puzzled by Fern calling Kelvin out like he was a dog and then barking at him. I pulled her away. Fern laughed and hummed her bus song. "I saw something. I saw something." After we practiced being led to freedom by Janice Angton as Harriet Tubman, Sister Mukumbu announced we would do community work. We would each take Sister Nazila's flyers out into the community and ask store owners to display them in their windows. Each of us had to present ourselves to the manager or owner. We would be respectful and clear. "Good afternoon. We are from the People's Center Summer Camp, and we are participating in the People's Rally. We are asking you to help the people of your community by displaying our flyer for the People's Rally this Saturday." Older kids like Eunice, Hirohito, and me also included information about free sickle cell anemia testing, voter registration, free shoes for the poor, supporting Huey Newton, and changing the park's name to Bobby Hutton Park. If store managers said yes, we were to thank them and tape a flyer to their window. If they said no, we were to leave just as respectfully as we came. "Heads up high, walking tall," Sister Mukumbu said. Hirohito was up first. He went to so before we move on, something you should know. Sickle cell anemia, they talked about it a few times in here. It's a very serious disease that primarily affects black folks. And something that you should know, this is true in history, the Black Panthers pioneered the widespread testing of the black population for this disease. And it's really helped them eventually to come up with some therapies here in 2020. It's very interesting, but that's a true story. Hirohito was up first. When he went to St. Augustine's Church and gave his presentation to a priest he seemed to know. Hirohito had it easy. The priest seemed to only be too happy to take his flyer. It figured. The church served free breakfast and gave away bags of food to poor people. They were, as Sister Pat might say, down with the cause. Or as Huey might say, carrying the weight. Still, Hirohito congratulated himself as he rejoined the group. So, I want to talk about the setting here. The setting is more than just the where, because we're in Oakland, right? The setting could also be the different parts that make up the setting. So it seems like there's two different groups in the neighborhood. Those who are down with the cause or carrying the weight, meaning that they're supportive of the efforts for the community's needs, and those maybe who don't support these efforts. I was supposed to ask Mean Lady Ming, but I knew she would say yes to me. I said, "Fern, Mean Lady Ming likes you. Go get her." I followed behind her but kept my distance. Fern couldn't remember all her speech, but what she said was good enough. "Good afternoon, Mean Lady Ming. We would like to put the People's Flyer in your window for the People's Rally this Saturday. Free Huey. Power to the people." Mean Lady Ming wasn't rankled by the name Fern called her. Her complaints, all in Chinese, sounded just like her complaints about customers who wanted extra duck sauce or free egg roll. That didn't stop her from taking Fern's flyer and taping it up to the window. So, very interesting. Well, this woman who the girls are calling, she runs the Chinese restaurant. They call her Mean Lady Ming. She's someone who helps the girls and the community in many ways. She gives the kids like free food sometimes. And I wonder if the girls have realized that maybe the name they have for her, Mean Lady Ming, maybe isn't fair. Vanetta and Janice Angton approached the Shabazz Bakery together. Another easy presentation. The bakery had pictures of Malcolm X and Black Power slogans on the wall. It didn't matter to either Vanetta or Janice. They both came out of the bakery waving their arms like home run hitters. Black, white, Mexican or Chinese, big stores, little stores. Some shook their heads north and south. Some shook their heads east and west. There were others who, in the middle of our presentations, simply pointed to the door. In those cases especially, Sister Mukumbu praised us for how well we presented ourselves and for how we left, respectfully, with our heads held high. Both Eunice and I went for the harder ones. Stores of the no-sayers. Places where we weren't guaranteed a listen or a smile. We'd heard no before. The hard looks of grown-ups who didn't like kids, or black people, or kids who were black was nothing new to us. After Eunice's third no, Sister Mukumbu pulled her aside for a little chat. Eunice had a hip-switching way about her walk that would have gotten me spoken to but good by Big Ma. When the store manager said no, Eunice would say, "Thank you anyway," the same way we'd say, "Forget you, forgot you," on the playground. Then she'd walk her hip-switching walk on out the store. I said I would go to the Safeway store and find the manager. Surely the grocery store workers had seen my sisters and me skipping down the aisles with our basket. I went up to the manager and said in my cheeriest voice, "Good afternoon. I'm from the People's Center Summer Camp, and I buy dinner groceries at this store." I threw that one in for good measure. Just as I was telling him about the rally and how good it would be for the community, he said no and something about it being against store policy. But he did look friendly. He did smile and thank us for shopping at Safeway. I had no hips to swish away with. Instead, my long legs carried me down the produce aisle, past the bread aisle, and out of the Safeway. I had been keeping a list of the East-West no-sayers and put Safeway at the very top of it. My sisters, Cecile, and I would eat egg rolls, white rice, bean pies, and fried fish before we spent another penny in the stores of the no-sayers. Ooh, I'm seeing a theme here. There's like a lesson that Delphine is realizing that she and the people who are down with the cause or the carrying the weight, they have power. They don't have to spend their money at these stores of the no-sayers, these people who are not supporting the community. And I'm kind of wondering what would happen if everyone who was down with the cause, everyone who was like supporting the community, what if they stopped shopping in the stores of the no-sayers? All right, chapter 28, stores of the no-sayers. All right, make sure in your notebook that you are summarizing who was in the chapter. What new things did you learn about them? What seems important? What are you learning about the problem? And how does this chapter connect to what you read earlier? Here's your question. What is Delphine's point of view, meaning how does she feel about the no-sayers? Use 2 details from the text to support your response.